Hello students and welcome to our second video on enterprise resource planning. In this video, I'm going to cover the evolution of ERP systems in last around 6 decades. But I'm trying to cover it in such a way that keeping evolution of ERP systems as our major focus of discussion, I'm also going to touch base upon how hardware, operating system, databases, and network, how all of this also evolved. Because at the end of the day, when all these resources uh, evolved, uh, ERP became more and more, uh, you know, functional, state of art. Okay, uh, and hence let's keep all these key aspects uh, in our discussion as we move forward, right? So 60s was a decade of mainframe. From the picture itself you could see that mainframes were very large computers. IBM was one of the key manufacturer of mainframe computers. Mainframes in 60s decade process data in batches. In fact, there used to be punch cards which used to use for giving in the input uh, to mainframe computers. Now, just to quickly give you an idea in terms of what a punch card was, probably you can imagine it as a paper cardboard card having rows and columns, and each cell would either have a hole or it would not. If there is a hole, it represents 1. If there is no hole, it represents 0. And these punch cards were created by the punch card operators based on the input given by the programmers. So programmers used to give the input in zeros and ones, right? And these punch card operators used to create the punch cards, and then these punch cards used to get inserted into punch card readers, and then the readers used to read the data and give it to mainframe computers for to process it. Okay, so inventory control system was the initial application that got developed in this decade, and it basically focused on 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 managing the stock uh, of materials or stores department, as well as warehouse management was also the focus in terms of where is the location of a specific item or a raw material. Okay, so these was the initial period. uh, there were no databases, so most of the information was to almost all of the information was stored on flat files. There is to be magnetic tapes that were getting used for the storage. Okay, and basically the computing was centralized on these huge computers. So this is how the inventory control system gave, or it was the initial period for uh, you know uh, for ERP to you know uh, get developed later. The second decade, 1970s, saw the rise of MRP. Now, MRP actually stands for Material Requirements and Planning. So, if you see, 60s focus from the application perspective was purely stock and warehouse management. But when it came to material requirements and planning, the production planning and control became the focus along with the stock, obviously. So production was more interested. to understand or to know if they have to manufacture X units, what would be the components and raw materials that would be required to manufacture those X units, and do they have it in stock or not? If they don't have it in stock, probably the procurement needs to be planned. Okay. Thus, production planning and control became the key focus, okay, of the MRP. Uh, Mainframes was were more of a centralized computing, large, huge computers. This decade actually saw the rise of minis and super minis. So, uh, Digital Equipment Corporation, Tech, had VAX series of machine along with BMS operating system and or PDP-7, PDP-11, and that's where uh, these computers were relatively smaller in size as compared to mainframe, and that's where decentralization of computing uh, started taking place. This was also the decade in which DBMS was evolving. Okay, so basically IDMS and IMS were two database management system. IDMS stands for Integrated Database Management System, which followed the network database model, whereas Information Management System IMS followed hierarchical database model, and both were uh, predominantly used on IBM machines. Uh, Integrated Management Information Management System (IMS) was IBM product, whereas IDMS was a Computer Associate product (CA) product, right? So this is how the early DBMS was also getting evolved. Um, Moving forward to 80s, uh, from production planning and control, the MRP2 also integrated more business functions as compared to MRP1, and those were like finance, sales, marketing, manufacturing. So these functions also get integrated, and this allowed a more comprehensive planning and control across departments. Okay. Whereas on the hardware front, this was the decade when Microsoft, IBM PCs, local area networks, LANs were coming into existence. See, in 70s decade, in 70s decade, as I said, we had tech machines, super minis, super mini computers. Those machines had dumb terminals. But with PCs, personal computers coming into existence, which were connected to LAN, what started or what happened was these dumb terminals were replaced by intelligent machines, which had its own memory and processing power, because of which departmental computerization started, right? So uh, uh, instead of dumb terminals getting connected, when the intelligent machines got connected, it 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 actually it could be used both for accessing MRP applications as well as the department level computing, uh, say usage of spreadsheets or usage of word processing softwares started happening. Now, in those days, Microsoft Excel wasn't there or MS Office wasn't there, but there was a product and very, very strong product. In fact, I have used that product in 90s, but it came in 80s, in 80s decade. It was Lotus 123. In fact, I used that product during my graduation in 87, 86, 87, 88 time. Uh, it was a spreadsheet product, very, very strong, and it is exact. In fact, Microsoft Excel is evolved from that spreadsheet product. And we also had WordStar as a word processor, which is today's world. We have MS Word. Okay, so this is how the departmental computing happened. So obviously in mid 80s in this decade, the typical stenographers typing memos on typewriters got replaced by PCs, and you could find people using word processors and uh, spreadsheet applications along with uh, the MRPs effectively. It was in 1990s, in fact, that you could see that the full-fledged ERP emerged. In fact, the entire business process, which used to span across all the business processes spanning across all business functions, in true sense, got automated. ERP word came into existence during this decade. It was in fact Forrester which uh, uh, which actually brought this word. Okay, uh, this was the time when client server architecture also came into existence. Uh, the true graphical user interface, because with Windows coming in, with uh, mouse getting used, uh, with Windows panes, panels, icons, uh, double clicking an icon for executing or loading an application. Uh, Command prompt got replaced by a, by a healthy GUI, and obviously the ERPs started following the standards which were laid down by Microsoft. Okay, and in fact, later every commercial product that came across followed that standard, right? Uh, Thus, this was a decade in which full-blown ERPs came into existence. Uh, what was missing? Probably most of that, almost everywhere, uh, organizations using these ERPs had their private networks. So in 90s, internet wasn't in existence. www wasn't in existence, and that's came around in 2000. So the ERPs which were developed in 90s had to go through a huge transformation because they needed to be web enabled, and that was one of the key aspects. So when I say web enabled, because you just didn't had computers connected on the web, but you slowly had uh, PDAs, personal digital assistants, getting connected to uh, the network. You had laptops, you had larger computers, you have servers and other network equipments uh, connected to the network, and there was a standard www getting followed. Uh, it was a stateless architecture, right? And the hence the ERP applications needed a transformation to embrace the web-based architecture. Uh, on the operating system front, we had uh, Windows Server, Red Hat Linux, coming in. In fact, lots of versions of Linux coming in. From the databases perspective, we had MySQL and Postgres and uh, multiple RDBMS coming in with internet, the open source and freeware getting used by number of organizations. And this was the period, I would say, both 90s and 2000s, these two decades really saw the huge transformation uh, coming in. The Going forward in 2010, this was the time when mobile equipments or mobility was introduced in market in big way, and you had Android and iOS devices. Now this generated a need for your ERP to be used from these DR to be accessed from these devices, and that's where mobile friendly ERP interfaces or mobile based ERP apps uh, came into existence. At the same time, uh, there was a trend of uh, getting the entire uh, architecture, getting the entire software shifted onto cloud, and the cloud service providers started coming into existence. um, Infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, software as a service, where the offerings that were offered by cloud service providers, and very soon ERPs as well moved onto cloud, where there were service providers offering ERPs as software as a service. And Zoho is one of the example in today's world where you find almost anything and everything on ERP front offered by Zoho, which is and which can actually cater to enterprise of any size. Okay, enterprise right from less than 10 people organization doing any kind of business to hundreds and thousands of uh, uh, people organization doing very complex business. Okay, so that's how cloud and mobility had ERP uh, you know evolve to suit to their need. And in today's world, yes, with lot of cutting edge technologies coming into existence like edge computing, Internet of Things, 5G, there are artificial intelligence accelerators. Okay, uh, these all things are now getting or evolving ERP more intelligent. In fact, your deployments of ERP are becoming very streamlined with uh, container operating systems like Docker and Kubernetes into existence. Uh, so ERPs are becoming more real time. They have integrated AI with a big way, because of which decision making is becoming uh, very fast. A lot of predictive analysis analytics that's happening. Uh, there are a lot of proactive business tools that are now integrated with ERPs. Okay, and in true sense, ERPs have transformed in today's world. So I think This is a quick snapshot of how ERPs have evolved in last 6 decades, along with along with technology, both hardware, software, system software, network perspective, and one has to look at it considering the holistic picture. Okay, you might have come across a lot of words, keywords, okay, and you might have to take a deep dive in some of these words based on your interest. Okay, uh, that brings us to this video, which predominantly talks about evolution. In next video, we'll see the benefits of ERP. Till then, uh, thank you and bye.